Captain Jake Morrison had seen some questionable cargo in his 20 years of hauling freight across the galaxy, but this was a new low, even for him. The woman strapped to the reinforced transport gurney looked like she could bench press a small moon. Despite being unconscious and wrapped in enough restraints to hold down a Regellian bull whale, her violet skin had an otherworldly shimmer, and even sedated, she radiated the kind of danger that made smart people cross to the other side of the space station. Zara Voss. Administrator Quell announced with the kind of theatrical flourish that suggested he practiced in mirrors. The pompous Altarian's forearms gestured dramatically at the prisoner. The Phantom of Kepler Prime. 300 confirmed kills across 17 star systems. Jake spat into his coffee cup. Charming. And you want me to haul this particular nightmare to the Titan Correctional Complex because Captain Morrison, Quell's voice dripped with condescension. Every other transport company in the sector has declined. Something about not wanting to end up as statistics in her kill count. But you figure the primitive human will be dumb enough to take the job? I figure the primitive human needs the credits badly enough to take the job. Jake had to give him that one. The rusty bucket wasn't going to repair herself, and his creditors were getting creative with their collection methods. Still, something about this whole setup stank worse than the recycling systems on level 7. Triple rate, Jake said, draining his coffee. In hazard pay. Done. Quell's eagerness was almost insulting. Though I assure you, she will remain sedated for the entire journey. The neural dampeners are military grade. Jake walked over to the gurney, studying the infamous assassin up close. Her breathing was steady, her face peaceful, almost too peaceful. Like someone trying really hard to look unconscious. Right, Jake muttered. Because nothing says maximum security like hiring the cheapest transport in the sector. As the loading crew wheeled Zara aboard the rusty bucket, Jake could have sworn he heard her whisper, "This should be fun." But that was impossible. She was unconscious. Wasn't she? Captain Morrison, Quell called out as Jake prepared to seal the cargo bay. Do try not to die. The paperwork would be extensive. I'll take that under advisement, Jake replied, hitting the bay door controls. As the massive doors clanged shut, he found himself staring at his supposedly unconscious passenger. Well, sweetheart, he said to the empty air, looks like we're going to be roommates for the next 3 days. The restraints creaked slightly as Zara shifted, and Jake could have sworn he saw the corner of her mouth twitch upward. His hand moved instinctively to the plasma pistol at his hip. 20 years of military service had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, every instinct was screaming that Administrator Quell had just made him the star of a very elaborate setup. Jake made his way to the cockpit, keying the intercom as he went. Morris, run a full diagnostic on our passengers' restraints and life signs. Already on it, Captain. The ship's AI replied in its perpetually cheerful voice. Restraints are functioning normally. Life signs are interesting. Define interesting. Well, for someone who's supposedly sedated, she has remarkably active brain patterns. Almost like she's listening to our conversation. Jake settled into the pilot's seat and began the launch sequence. Keep monitoring her. And Morris? Yes, Captain? Activate the internal security grid. All levels. Expecting trouble? Jake watched the space station shrink behind them as they pulled away. In my experience, trouble doesn't need an invitation. It just shows up. In the cargo bay, Zara Voss smiled. 18 hours into what should have been a routine transport, Jake's proximity alarm started screaming like a Centaurian banshee. Well, that's just fantastic, he muttered, scanning the tactical display. 3 ships had dropped out of hyperspace directly ahead of them, and they weren't broadcasting any friendly greetings. Captain Morrison, came a voice over the comm, thick with theatrical menace. I am Captain Grimjaw of the Bloodfang Corsairs. You will surrender your cargo immediately or face the consequences. Jake sighed. Pirates. Of course it was pirates. Let me guess, Grimjaw. You want the assassin. The Phantom of Kepler Prime will fetch a handsome price on the black market. Her skills are in demand. Yeah, about that, Jake said, powering down his weapon systems in apparent surrender. There's something you should know about my cargo. The pirates closed in, their boarding clamps attaching to the rusty bucket's hull with metallic thuds. Jake could hear them cutting through the outer airlock, their voices echoing through the ship's corridors. Morris, Jake said quietly, how's our passenger doing? Restraints are, well, Captain, this is awkward. The restraints appear to be unlocked. Unlocked? T.O.? More specifically, they've been unlocked for the past 6 hours. She's been waiting. The first pirate through the door was a massive Krogan with arms like tree trunks and a personality to match. He stomped into the cargo bay, plasma rifle raised, expecting to find a helpless prisoner. Instead, he found empty restraints and a very awake, very annoyed Zara Voss. "Oh, hello there," she said pleasantly, right before she broke his neck. What followed was less a battle and more a master class in creative violence. Zara moved like liquid death, turning every piece of equipment in the cargo bay into an improvised weapon. A wrench became a skull crusher. A power coupling became a garrote. A maintenance panel became a very effective shield. "You know," Jake's voice came over the intercom, calm as if he were commenting on the weather, "I was wondering when you'd make your move." Zara ducked under a plasma blast and separated another pirate from his weapon. And his arm. "You knew I was awake?" "Lady, I've been hauling cargo for 20 years. I know the difference between sedated and playing possum." A Regellian pirate tried to flank her. Zara introduced him to the bulkhead. "Hard. Then why didn't you do anything about it?" "Because," Jake said, as the sounds of combat echoed through the ship, "I figured if someone was going to try to steal my cargo, I might as well let my cargo handle it." The last pirate, a twitchy centaurian with more tentacles than sense, made the mistake of backing toward the airlock. Zara helped him find it. From the outside. "Captain Grimjaw," Jake called over the comm, "I'm afraid your boarding party has encountered some technical difficulties." "What kind of technical difficulties?" "The kind where they're all dead." Silence. Then, impossible. She was sedated. "Yeah, about that." Jake's voice was pure deadpan. "Turns out your intelligence was wrong. She's been awake this whole time. And frankly, she's in a terrible mood." The pirate ships began pulling away from the rusty bucket, their enthusiasm for the heist significantly diminished. "This isn't over, Morrison." "It never is," Jake replied, cutting the comm. Zara appeared in the doorway to the cockpit, not even breathing hard despite having just dismantled 6 heavily armed pirates. "So," she said, "you used me as a security system. Seemed practical. I could have killed you too." Jake turned in his chair to face her. "You could have. But you didn't." "What makes you so sure?" "Because if you wanted me dead, I'd be dead. You've had 18 hours to figure out how to get out of those restraints. You've been waiting for something more interesting than just killing the transport pilot." Zara studied him for a long moment. "You're not what I expected." "I get that a lot." She settled into the co-pilot's seat, her restraints nowhere to be seen. "So what now, Captain Morrison?" "Now," Jake said, returning to his navigation console, "we have a conversation about what you really want." "What makes you think I want anything?" "Because assassins like you don't get captured by accident. And they definitely don't get transported by the cheapest freight hauler in the sector unless someone's playing a very long game." Zara smiled. It was not a comforting expression. "I'm starting to like you, Captain." "That's what I was afraid of." "So," Jake said, pouring himself another cup of coffee, while Zara examined his weapon rack with professional interest, "Want to tell me why the most feared assassin in the galaxy let herself get captured? Would you believe me if I said it was all a misunderstanding?" "Not even a little bit." Zara picked up a plasma rifle, checked the charge, and set it back down. "I was framed for the assassination of Ambassador Krell, 300 witnesses, security footage, the works. Very thorough setup. But you didn't kill him. Oh, I absolutely wanted to kill him. The man was a war criminal who deserved to die screaming. But someone beat me to it and made sure I took the blame. Jake leaned back in his chair. Let me guess. Administrator Quell? Very good. Quell needed a scapegoat for a political assassination, and I was convenient. The fact that I'm guilty of about 200 other murders just made it easier to sell. So you let yourself get captured to get close to him. Eventually. But the plan hit a snag when they hired you instead of one of the usual transport companies. Because the usual companies would have delivered you straight to the prison. Exactly. But you, Zara tilted her head, studying him. You're military. Special forces, if I had to guess. Your hands, your posture, the way you assessed those pirates before they even boarded. Jake's expression didn't change. I drive a freight hauler. You drive a freight hauler now. But you used to hunt people like me for a living. Used to being the operative phrase. Why'd you quit? Jake was quiet for a long moment. Because I got tired of being the good guy in a universe that doesn't give a damn about good guys. The ship's intercom crackled to life. Captain Morrison, this is Titan Station Control. Please respond. Jake and Zara looked at each other. Showtime, Jake muttered, activating the comm. Titan Control, this is Captain Morrison. Go ahead. We have you on approach, Captain. How's your passenger? Sedated and secured, Jake replied, while Zara silently slid to the floor and closed her eyes, playing unconscious. No problems during transport. Copy that. Prepare for customs inspection upon docking. Understood. Morrison out. Zara opened one eye. Think they bought it? We'll find out. In the meantime, how do you feel about a career change? I'm listening. I don't actually make my living hauling freight. That's just my cover. I hunt war criminals. The kind of people who slip through the cracks of the justice system. Vigilante work? I prefer to think of it as freelance justice. Good pay, flexible hours, and I get to shoot people who genuinely deserve it. Zara sat up suddenly, very interested. And you're offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership. You help me track down the worst of the worst, and I help you get your life back, starting with clearing your name. And if I say no, then I deliver you to Titan Correctional as promised, and you can spend the rest of your life planning your escape. Morris, Zara called out, what's your assessment of this proposal? Well, Miss Voss, the AI replied cheerfully. Statistically speaking, your chances of survival are significantly higher working with Captain Morrison than against him. Plus, his coffee is really quite good. The AI likes you, Jake observed. Morris has excellent taste. Very well, Captain Morrison. You have a deal. They shook hands, and Jake was struck by how small her hand felt in his, despite knowing she could probably kill him with it. One question, Zara said. How do you know I won't just kill you in your sleep? Because you're not a psychopath. You're a professional. And professionals don't kill their business partners. Plus, Morris added helpfully, I've been monitoring your bio readings, Miss Voss. You're actually quite fond of him already. Zara's violet cheeks darkened slightly. Your AI is impertinent. He grows on you, Jake said, like a fungus. I resent that comparison, Morris protested. See what I mean? As the rusty bucket approached Titan Station, Jake began plotting their next move. Administrator Quell thought he'd eliminated a threat and gained a convenient scapegoat. Instead, he'd just created his worst nightmare. A human and an assassin working together. The galaxy was about to learn why that was a very bad idea. 3 weeks later, Jake and Zara were parked in orbit around Hedon Prime, the galaxy's premier pleasure planet, watching their first target through surveillance footage. Overlord Kex, Jake said, highlighting the obese hut-like creature on the screen. War criminal, slave trader, and part-time gourmet chef. He's been hiding here for 2 years under the name Kexi the Magnificent. Subtle, Zara observed, loading her weapons. What's the plan? Direct assault. Better. We're going to use the one thing nobody expects on a pleasure planet. Which is? A health inspection. Zara stared at him. You're joking. I never joke about bureaucracy. It's too terrifying. An hour later, they were standing outside Kex's restaurant, Zara disguised as a health inspector from the Galactic Culinary Commission, complete with clipboard and a very official-looking badge. Jake was dressed as her assistant, pushing a cart full of completely legitimate food safety equipment. Remember, Jake whispered, stick to the script. You're Inspector Vega, and you're here to conduct a routine inspection of the establishment. This is insane, Zara muttered, but she was already slipping into character. They walked through the front door like they owned the place, which, in Jake's experience, was half the battle. The restaurant was packed with the usual collection of criminals, mercenaries, and politicians that made up Hedon Prime's clientele. Excuse me, Zara said to the first server she encountered, her voice crisp and officious. Inspector Vega, Galactic Culinary Commission. I need to speak with the owner immediately. The server, a nervous Twi'lek, practically vibrated with anxiety. Inspector? But we weren't expecting an inspection today. That's the point, Jake said helpfully. Surprise inspections are the most effective way to ensure compliance with health codes. Within minutes, they were being escorted to the kitchen, where Overlord Kex was personally overseeing the preparation of his signature dish, the roasted Alderaanian songbird with a side of what Jake really hoped wasn't what it looked like. Inspector Vega, Kex boomed, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer. To what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? Routine inspection, sir. I'm afraid we've had some complaints about this establishment. Complaints? Impossible. My restaurant has the highest standards in the sector. Zara pulled out her clipboard and began making notes. I'll need to examine your food storage areas, your preparation surfaces, and your waste disposal systems. Of course. But surely we can discuss this over dinner? I was just preparing a special meal for some very important guests. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Zara said, moving closer to the preparation area. Oh my, this is highly irregular. What's irregular? This meat appears to be from an endangered species. That's a class of violation. Now see here, Kex blustered, I have all the proper permits. And these storage conditions are completely unsanitary, Jake added, opening a freezer unit. The temperature is far below regulation standards. What happened next was a masterclass in coordinated takedown. While Kex was distracted by the fake health violations, Zara moved with liquid grace, her hand finding the hidden blade in her inspector's toolkit. One quick motion, and Overlord Kex discovered what it felt like to be on the receiving end of his own food chain. Health code violation, Zara said calmly, wiping her blade clean. The chef was contaminated. The kitchen staff stared in shock as Jake calmly placed a beacon on Kex's body. Galactic Justice Authority. This establishment is now a crime scene. They walked out the front door with the same confidence they'd walked in, leaving behind a very confused restaurant full of criminals who couldn't quite figure out what had just happened. That was surprisingly effective, Zara said as they made their way back to the rusty bucket. You sound surprised. I was expecting something more conventional. Conventional gets you killed in this business. Weird keeps you alive. Is that a human saying? It is now. Now. Back on the ship, Jake was already pulling up files on their next target when Morris interrupted with an incoming transmission. Captain, you have a priority message from someone calling themselves the broker. Jake and Zara exchanged glances. The broker was legendary in the underworld, a shadowy figure who dealt in information and had connections throughout the criminal hierarchy. Put it through, Jake said. A distorted voice filled the cockpit. Captain Morrison. MS Voss. Congratulations on your successful hunt. Word of your partnership is spreading quickly through certain circles. What do you want? Jake asked. To offer you a job. A big one. The kind that could set you up for life. We're listening. General Thane. The butcher of Kepler Prime. He's surfaced. Zara went very still. Where? That information will cost you. But I think you'll find the price reasonable. Jake looked at Zara's expression and knew they were about to step into something much bigger than hunting random war criminals. General Thane wasn't just another target. He was the reason Zara had become the Phantom of Kepler Prime in the first place. Send us the details, Jake said. Already done. Happy hunting. The transmission ended, leaving them in silence. Finally, Zara spoke. He killed everyone I ever loved. Then we're going to kill him. It won't be easy. Thane has an entire army protecting him. Jake smiled, and for the first time since they'd met, Zara saw something genuinely dangerous in his eyes. Lady, you haven't seen what a human can do when he's really motivated. And what motivates you, Captain Morrison? Justice. And lately, keeping you alive. Zara felt something warm spread through her chest. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Your social circle needs work. I'm working on that. The trap was beautiful in its simplicity. Administrator Quell had been tracking them for weeks, monitoring their communications, studying their patterns. When the broker's message came through, he was ready. Captain Morrison, Quell's voice crackled through the comm as they approached the coordinates for General Thane's location. How delightful to hear from you again. Quell, Jake said, his hands moving over the controls. I was wondering when you'd show up. Surrender immediately, and I might consider making your deaths relatively painless. Tempting offer. Counter-proposal, go screw yourself. Such language. And in front of a lady, no less. I'm not a lady, Zara said, checking her weapons. I'm a killer. There's a difference. Indeed. The infamous Phantom of Kepler Prime. Do you know why I chose you for this elaborate charade? Because you needed someone to take the fall for Ambassador Krell's assassination. Partially correct. But the real reason is much more personal. You see, General Thane is my employer. He pays me very well to ensure that certain inconvenient truths remain buried. Jake's blood ran cold. What truths? The truth about Kepler Prime. About what really happened there. About who gave the order to sterilize the planet. Zara's voice was deadly quiet. You. I merely passed along the order. The decision came from much higher up the food chain. But General Thane was happy to take the credit. And the blame. So you set us up, Jake said, watching the tactical display as Quell's ships moved into position around them. Let us think we were hunting him, when really you were eliminating the last witness to your war crimes. Brilliant, isn't it? 2 birds, 1 stone. Or in this case, 2 criminals, 1 very large explosion. There's just one problem with your plan, Jake said. Oh? And what's that? You assumed I was stupid enough to walk into an obvious trap. The first sign that something was wrong came when Quell's ships opened fire and hit nothing but empty space. The rusty bucket was gone, vanished like a ghost. Impossible, Quell muttered. Where did they go? We never left, Jake's voice came from directly behind Quell's flagship. Humans call it playing possum. We're really good at it. The rusty bucket materialized behind Quell's command ship, its weapon systems fully charged. But instead of firing, Jake simply waited. You're bluffing, Quell said, but his voice betrayed his uncertainty. Am I? Morris, show our friend what we've been working on. The AI's cheerful voice filled the comm channel. Certainly, Captain. Administrator Quell, I've taken the liberty of accessing your personal files, your communications with General Thane, your orders regarding Kepler Prime. Your bank records showing payments from the Thane regime. I'm currently broadcasting all of this information to every news outlet in the sector. You can't do that. Those files are classified. Were classified, Morris corrected. Now they're public record. I do so enjoy a good data breach. You're both going to die for this, Quells snarled. Probably, Jake agreed. But you're going to die first. That's when General Thane's voice cut through the calm static. Administrator Quell, you have failed me for the last time. General, I can explain, no need. My ships are already targeting your position. Quell's fleet found itself caught between Jake's ship and Thane's approaching dreadnought. In the chaos that followed, Jake and Zara slipped away, leaving their enemies to destroy each other. Think they'll figure out we're gone? Zara asked, watching the battle rage behind them. Eventually. But by then we'll be long gone. And Thane will be too busy dealing with the Galactic Tribunal to worry about us. Morris made sure of that. I have to ask, Zara said, studying Jake's profile as he piloted them to safety. How did you know this was a trap? Because I set it up. I've been feeding information to Quell for weeks, leading him to believe we were tracking Thane. The whole thing was designed to flush him out. And the broker? Works for me. Has for years. Zara stared at him. You're not just a freight hauler, are you? I told you I used to hunt people like you. What I didn't tell you was that I never stopped. I just got better at it. What are you? Jake smiled. Former military intelligence, current freelance problem solver, and recently the guy who's been falling in love with a reformed assassin. Reformed? We're working on it. And the falling in love part? We're working on that too. Zara leaned over and kissed him. I think we're making progress. Morris, Jake said, remind me to give you a raise. I don't get paid, Captain. Then remind me to get you a better personality subroutine. I like my personality just fine. Thank you very much. As they jumped to hyperspace, leaving the chaos behind them, Jake realized that everything had changed. He was no longer just a man with a mission. He was part of something bigger. Something that was going to change the galaxy. One job at a time. 6 months later, Jake woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Zara humming while she cleaned her weapons. It was a surprisingly domestic scene, considering one of them was a reformed assassin and the other was a rogue intelligence operative. Morning, beautiful, he said, stretching as he climbed out of bed. Morning. I made coffee. And I've identified our next target. Multitasking. I like that in a woman. I'm a woman of many talents. Jake poured himself a cup and looked over her shoulder at the intelligence file spread across their dining table. General Vex of the Outer Rim territories, war crimes, slave trading, and really bad taste in uniforms. He's been hiding on Omega Station for 3 years. The locals are too afraid to report him. What's our cover this time? Food critics. Jake nearly choked on his coffee. Food critics? Trust me. I have a plan. Your plans always involve someone dying horribly. That's what makes them good plans. Morris, Jake called out, please tell me you have some input on this. I think it's a wonderful idea, the AI replied. I've already prepared your credentials. You're Jake Morrison, food critic for Galactic Gourmet magazine. Miss Voss is your photographer and culinary expert. See? Zara said, holstering her favorite blade. Morris thinks it's a good idea. Morris once recommended I try dating a Centaurian, because they have interesting tentacles. That was solid advice, Morris protested. Very progressive of you to consider interspecies relationships. I'm human. I'll stick with human-compatible species, thank you very much. Zara's not technically human, Morris pointed out. She's human enough for me. Zara smiled. That's the sweetest thing you've ever said to me. I'm working on my emotional vocabulary. It shows. Jake settled into his chair and pulled up the mission files. Over the past 6 months, they'd taken down 12 war criminals, exposed 2 major corruption scandals, and somehow managed to fall in love without killing each other. It was, by any measure, a successful partnership. "You know," he said, reviewing General Vex's file, "when I first took that transport job, I thought I was just picking up a dangerous prisoner. Instead, you picked up a dangerous partner. Best mistake I ever made. I prefer to think of it as destiny." "Since when do you believe in destiny?" "Since I met a human who used me as a security system and somehow made it romantic." Jake laughed. "Only you would find that romantic. I'm a simple woman. I like efficiency, good coffee, and men who aren't afraid of me. 2 out of 3 isn't bad." "You're not afraid of me?" "Terrified. But in a good way." "Morris," Zara said, "please note that Captain Morrison just admitted to being terrified of me." Noted. "Should I add that to your relationship file?" "We have a relationship file?" "I've been tracking your emotional development for months. It's fascinating reading." "You're not supposed to be analyzing our relationship," Jake protested. "I'm an AI. I analyze everything. It's what I do." "What's your analysis?" "You're perfect for each other. You're both dangerous, morally flexible, and have excellent taste in coffee. Plus, your biorhythms are remarkably compatible." "Our biorhythms?" "You sleep better when she's in the room. She's calmer when you're nearby. It's quite sweet, actually." Jake and Zara looked at each other, then back at the AI's interface. "Morris," Jake said, "you're getting a personality upgrade." "I don't want a personality upgrade. I like being helpful and slightly intrusive." "Too bad. You're getting one anyway. This is what I get for trying to be supportive." As they prepared for their next mission, Jake reflected on how much his life had changed. 6 months ago, he'd been a bitter ex-military freight hauler, drinking too much and caring too little. Now he was part of a team that was actually making a difference in the galaxy. "You know what the best part is?" he said to Zara as she packed her gear. "What?" "Everyone still thinks humans are primitive. They have no idea what we're capable of when we're properly motivated. And what motivates humans? Justice, love, really good coffee. And the chance to prove that we're not as dumb as we look. You're not dumb at all.